I've had a bunch of interactions with many actors in training, from colleges and universities and professional training programs of late. It's typical this time of year for many of these schools to showcase their graduating talent. Often, the schools rent space in New York or Los Angeles or Chicago or elsewhere and offer an hour or so of their aspiring talent to perform for invited guests, invited managers, and casting directors. The purpose is to expose the actors to industry professionals who might be interested in working with them. Now, this is usually very exciting, intense, and frightening. It's a frightening experience. After all, this is a coming out party for students who want to enter the profession. We need to break it down and explain the truth behind the college showcase experience without having a breakdown on this episode of Casting Actors Cast.
It's time for another episode of Casting Actors Cast, insights for actors from a casting director. Here he is, your host, Jeffrey Dreisbach.
Well, hello, and welcome to today's episode of Casting Actors Cast. I'm casting partner Jeffrey Dreisbach with the McCorkle Group in New York. How are you? I hope you're having a good day. Hey, listen, if you haven't checked out our website yet, it's really easy to do. Just simply go to castingactorscast, all one word.com, and there you're going to find some additional information about the podcast. There's a place called Jeff's Jots, which are the show notes that correspond to each of our episodes. Additionally, on the landing page is a place that says dive into the talent pool. And if you do that, simply giving me your name and email address, that's going to open up some freebies for you. Now, one is a book on doing voiceover work. It's a 100-page PDF called Conversation Pieces Out of the Studio. It's absolutely free of charge. You can download it. You can put it on your reader. I think you're going to find it really useful if that's an area of interest for you. The next is a video that I put together. It's about a 20-minute video, and it's called Casting Secrets, what they don't tell you. But I'm going to tell you in this free 20-minute video, this is all just an effort for me to get to know you, for me to understand that there's a whole bunch of actors out there who are enjoying and listening. It just kind of gives me an indication that you are out there, which of course is a complete motivator for me. Also, I would invite you, if you so choose, to please consider giving me a review, a like, a thumbs up, anything that you can do to sort of help promote the podcast is really very, very much appreciated. Finally, this is my shout out to my good friends at Actors Connection, actorsconnection.com/New York. Hello to my good friends, Colleen and Tony. All right, now let's jump into the showcase. Listen, I've done a previous podcast on doing the showcase thing. I don't know what else to call it. The showcase conundrum. I think that's no, that's not what I called it. I can't remember what I called it, but it was about a year ago. But I wanted to include some fresh information, perhaps a fresh set of eyes on the showcase scenario. Many colleges and universities, but listen, you know what? Last year I got about 120 invitations to showcases, both virtual as well as in person in New York. It was just overwhelming. It was just, it was great that there were so many colleges and universities that are showcasing their students by bringing them to New York. But on the other hand, it's so overwhelming. There's just no possible way that I could make each and every showcase to see all of the talent that's coming in or starting their careers. So when talent is interested in starting their careers, they love the idea of doing a showcase, but there's some realities also that need to be addressed. And that's what we're doing in today's podcast. Let's first talk about what a showcase is. Let's just break it down that way first. Usually it's an hour of various material specifically suited for each actor in that graduating class. Now, it can be musical theater, it can be monologues, it can be scenes, whatever it is. This material has been put together and worked on, hopefully, by those college and university settings. So that's what they are, usually. It's also a way for graduating students to get professional exposure, which is why they bring these students to New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Atlanta. So when students graduate from their training programs, they feel really excited because this is a way that they can get to meet professionals in the industry. So that's another thing about these showcases, is that they do offer an opportunity for these actors to get seen. But guess what? It's also an opportunity for the industry to find new talent for their agency, for their projects. So when agents and managers and casting directors and studio people come to these showcases, it really is to see and get a sense of the talent from each of these individual schools and programs. So that's another thing that is very much a benefit and kind of a cool thing. Also, what is a showcase? It's a method for training programs to showcase their school's training. So it's not just about showcasing the talent. It's also about these programs to sort of, I don't know how to say this, but I'll just say it, to sort of show off what they're doing. And so a school's reputation can be enhanced, or likewise, it can be sort of a distraction if the training isn't up to professional standards. So it's not just for the students, but colleges have an opportunity to market their training to professionals in the industry as well. So there is a trade-off that takes place. It's not just about the students, but it's also about the training that is being given to the students. It's also satisfying the professional development requirement for these schools. Many times, schools need to promote the kind of work that they're doing in their programs to make them attractive. That only makes sense. One of the ways that they can dangle that proverbial carrot is by saying, yes, and when you graduate, we do a showcase in New York and Los Angeles, so you get exposure to industry professionals. Now, that sometimes is a very, very intriguing selling point for colleges and universities. But also understand that a handful of years ago, a university got sued because they were offering BFA degrees and then offered no future employment opportunities to those graduates. And so that school was involved in a class action suit, and that freaked every college and university out in the country. So they decided that if they could offer these showcases, that in a way, it sort of absolves them of continuing employment opportunities made available after graduation. This sort of satisfies that particular requirement. Now, I don't mean to sound cynical. I think that there is a good faith effort in order to help the actors that are graduating from their training. Don't get me wrong. But it also happens to fulfill that area where, because the nature of show business is such, it really becomes something that the colleges and universities want to make an extra effort and show others that they are making that extra effort as well. Now, let's move on from there. And this is what a showcase is not. A showcase is not a place to get discovered. If you think that the showcase is your ticket to fame and stardom, and this is all you need to concern yourself with in terms of applying yourself and get seen, and the next thing that's going to happen is you'll get an agent, and the next thing is you're going to get a casting director who wants you for their project. I think that that's kind of a fool's errand. I think that there are opportunities made available, but certainly it is not a place where everyone can have the opportunity to get discovered. It doesn't quite work that way. By the way, I don't think you should be spending any energy fantasizing about that. I think the energy should be put into doing good work. That's the most important thing. Now, a showcase is not a way to show everything you can do. Right? If you have, let's say, within an hour's time, and you've got a class of 15 or 18 or 24 students, do the math. There's no way that you're going to be able to show your variety and the versatility of your talent within a 1 to 1.5 hour period of time by just having 2 scenes, or 1 scene and a monologue, or 1 solo and 1 group scene. You know, it's just not enough to showcase everything you can do. So the idea of the showcase kind of being able to show how you are so talented may not be answered in a showcase because you've trained in a lot of different areas. You have a lot of different experience. And there is this misnomer that you can sort of get that kind of attention in terms of your full, well-rounded training. And you know what? You can't. You really just can't. So when you put these showcases together, hopefully a lot of time and attention is put into casting you well. But also within that, there should be some variety and versatility in your work. Also, please know that a showcase is not a singular event to launching an acting career. It's like I said earlier, it's not the be all and the end all. It's not the one opportunity that you have to break out. That's just misaligned thinking as far as I'm concerned. Now, it is what it is, and that's awesome, and that should stand on its own. Be careful about over fantasizing that this is going to be, like I said, your ticket out. Also, I want to just share this. The showcase also is not an end to your relationships with your classmates. There's this weird thing that happens because suddenly you're being exposed to talent in the form of agents and managers and casting directors and producers and people. When you do your showcase, you're not suddenly on your own. My suggestion is that you really make a concerted effort to maintain the relationships with your fellow classmates. They are excellent resources for you. After all, they know you probably better than anyone knows you. And to maintain those relationships through showcase, and even if you're making a decision to move to New York or Chicago or Los Angeles or Atlanta, maintaining those relationships can really have a positive effect on your growth as an actor as you move forward in the profession. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that the showcase is not to be taken too seriously or too lightly. What I mean by that is that if you just decide that it's no big deal, or you don't really spend enough time putting the showcase together so that it is interesting and fun and effective, an effective way to show off your talent, then you're shooting yourself in the foot as well. So there is a balance to be struck. So what can you do to make this a meaningful experience? Well, first and foremost, my suggestion, please remember that it's just a moment in time, that careers are not built on one event. It's not an audition, and it's not an evaluation. It's simply an opportunity to perform. And that's my suggestion in terms of the way to look at it. If you just decide that this is just an opportunity to do some stuff and have a good time doing it, using all of the tools that I've learned in school, then you're going to be in a much, much better mental and emotional place, I promise you. And do not be in competition with your fellow classmates. I said that earlier. There's this thing about, oh, well, somebody in my class got 5 interviews out of the showcase and I got nothing. I can tell you there's a list as long as my arm of those really, really successful actors who didn't get anything at the showcase. So there are also lists of actors who got wonderful opportunities by meeting some agents and some casting directors that didn't go very far. So please keep in mind, it's only a moment in time and you're not competing with anyone else. I guess the only one you're competing with is yourself and your own mental attitude about what this is all about. So continuing that thought, getting an agent meeting is and should not be the goal making. If you just decide that this is your way to get an agent, understand that that may not be the case. You might get 3 or 4 meetings to meet with a particular agencies, and that's very exciting and that's very fun. But you know what? It's much more important that you make a good impression. It's much more important that in those meetings you are prepared to answer questions that you might be asked. Along those lines, I've got several podcasts, so you might want to check out the archives about what takes place in an agent meeting. If this is you, I promise you're going to be in a much better place having listened to those podcasts because they directly address the situation of an agent meeting. So just imagine that it's about relationships. It's about growing and developing relationships. It's about meeting new people in the industry, keeping it that frame of reference for what it actually is. You just want to make an impression. That's the goal. Speculation on the effect of the showcase will have a waste of energy. Speculation on the effect the showcase has is a waste of energy. If you're projecting that, gosh, I hope I get something out of this. Now, there's nothing wrong with hoping, right? There's nothing wrong with saying, if something comes of it, great. If nothing comes of it, great. It's hard to go there. I understand that. But if you are raising the stakes too high for an eventual outcome, then you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Remember, your acting is emotional. Your being an actor is professional. Somebody write that down because that was really, really good. I want to see your emotion in your acting, but I definitely want to see your professionalism as an actor. That's really, I think, the most useful piece of advice I could give you. There are so many reasons to question the impact of a showcase. On the other hand, to dismiss the opportunity is kind of like, oh, it's no big deal, is not to appreciate the possibility of creating opportunities for your talent. Here's my advice. Breaking down the experience into manageable bites is really a great way of making an impact that will help you avoid having a breakdown. I'm Jeffrey Dreisbach. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time on Casting Actors Cast.
Please don't forget to review, like, and share Casting Actors Cast wherever you get your podcast videos. Thanks. I'm Megan Grace Martinez.